Tough decisions in store for sanctuary cities after new Attorney General Bondi turns off the federal funding spigot. That is storyline number one. The Trump administration sues Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois over protections for undocumented immigrants. Remember that one? Okay. Here's third one. Brandon Johnson. Let's go, Brandon Johnson, to testify before Congress on Chicago's sanctuary city status. Get out the popcorn, folks. I might even live stream that one. That is going to be classic because let's go, Brandon Johnson, not the quickest on his feet. Know what I mean? All right. And then finally, we've got Attorney General Pam Bondi vows Trump's Department of Justice will return to core function of prosecuting violent crime. That's weird. Weird. Department of Justice, prosecuting violent crime. The weaponization ends. Let's get into it. Here we go. Boy, we have just had an endless array of sanctuary narratives going on, haven't we? It's just coming, a coming. Just some wild stuff. With Attorney General Pam Bondi ordering a pause on federal funds for so-called sanctuary cities. I love it when they call them so-called sanctuary cities. Because what does that really mean? Oh, we're going to protect the criminal illegal aliens. That's what it means. And so the feds now doing Operation Aurora or whatever we want to call it. They're going in, they're taking out the criminal illegal child rapists. That's what we had here in Seattle. I mean, they're doing work, and yet you've got these big liberal cities in liberal states that are designated sanctuary city. They're impeding federal authorities tossing out the bad guy, the bad man. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me how the left is viewing this. It's like, you got a bunch of criminals in your area. Don't you want them out? Oh, you don't. You just want to let them just roam around. Okay. Well, anyway, I have a different perspective on that, right? Bondi also directed the Department of Justice probe instances of jurisdictions that are impeding law enforcement and that they be prosecuted when necessary. You know what's going to happen? These big libtard cities, they're just going to bend the knee. They're going to bend both knees, end up on their knees, and then, right? Oh! In Pennsylvania, at least 2 major cities have enacted sanctuary policies, while leaders in a third have signaled opposition to working with federal immigration authorities. You got Pennsylvania, you've got Denver, Mike Johnson, and you've got mayor of Boston. I mean, all liberal cities that are basically, we want to protect our people. No, you're protecting criminal illegal aliens and you're protecting ones with known criminal records because that's who the feds are going after. So if you're okay with this, I mean, if this is your thing, which is protecting criminals, keep doing what you're doing because you're in the spotlight and your constituents, they can look around and go like all my folks in Chicago that tune in because of the Tiff, the super mayor, the dictator of Dalton, Tahoe Tiff without the Tahoes. She's the super mayor in Thornton Township and also the mayor of Dalton. You know, folks in Chicago can look around and go, okay, so our mayor, let's go Brandon Johnson, he's giving all these resources to the illegals who don't live here, who aren't contributing to our society, giving them all millions and millions and millions of dollars. And what do you folks in Chicago get? Yeah, the same thing that folks here in Seattle get when we're handing out all this money to the illegals. But local homeless folks aren't getting that. You're getting the big goose egg. So this puts a spotlight on that goose egg. Philadelphia notably announced its new paradigm when then Mayor Jim Kenney videotaped himself dancing in his office and singing, "We are a sanctuary city," after a judge ruled in the city's favor on enacting such policies. The video went viral. Let's take a quick look at that. This guy is mentally challenged. Here we go.
A sanctuary city, yeah.
But a Republican lawmaker says this is no reason to celebrate. Pennsylvania.
I'm sorry. What in the F kind of dance is that?
Yeah.
But a Republican.
What?
But a Republican lawmaker says this is Pennsylvania State Representative.
One more time, folks, because that is just something a grown man should not be doing. I mean, if I didn't know any better, that is a dead ringer for Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. That guy just running around. What a weirdo. What a weirdo. So, Representative for current Mayor Sherelle Parker declined comment on Bondi's action when reached Thursday. Lancaster, a blue dot in the Amish country sea of red, also approved sanctuary city status, while Republicans at the county level passed an ordinance ensuring cooperation with the feds. While Pittsburgh is not formally a sanctuary city, Democratic Mayor Ed Gainey recently announced, "I'm not going to be working with ICE," after Border Czar Tom Homan took the reins in Washington. Democrats hold a slim one-seat majority in the state house, and GOP controls the Senate, with Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro leading the executive branch. So you've got just, and it's not just these areas that are mentioned as well. You've got Seattle. I mean, I've seen the map. It's basically all the West Coast, North Dakota, a handful of stuff on the East Coast, and then a sprinkling of counties in, what you'd consider red states. A sprinkling of counties have gone down this virtue signaling where, we want to be a sanctuary city. Anybody that's a sanctuary city, you should have your head checked, because your head is literally up your ass. It just is. That's where your head is. It's like, we want to have compassion. So you want to have compassion for convicted criminal aliens that are in your community doing criminal acts? That's what you want to have compassion for? All right. I mean, that's your call, but that's not exactly what I'd be looking to do. That's not exactly what I'd be looking to support. So here we go. Trump administration sues Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois. Trump administration Thursday asked a federal judge to invalidate the state, city, and county laws designed to protect undocumented immigrants by prohibiting state local law enforcement officials from helping these federal agents. The lawsuit, here we go. This is who it names. All right, we got Let's Go Brandon Johnson, Chicago Mayor, Let's Go Brandon Johnson. We got Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. That guy is a complete moron. We've got Cook County Board President Tony Prickwinkle. We got Tony Prickwinkle. All right. Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart and Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling. All these folks are on board with protecting the illegal immigrants, the convicted felons. Now, I'm sure the Cook County Sheriff and the police department, they're just taking it from the top, meaning they're just bending over and taking it, right? City's welcoming city ordinance and the Illinois Trust Act reflects the intentional effort to obstruct the federal government's enforcement of federal immigration law. That's what we're trying to work out. All right. You guys come up with your sanctuary city nonsense, your sanctuary city crap. You virtue signal to everybody. Most of your constituents go, we don't care. There's a few on the far left, like all the knuckleheads here in Seattle, that are like, you just need to be compassionate. Compassionate for child rapists? Okay, because that's who ICE has gotten here in Seattle. Now I have it on the down low that ICE is not communicating to local media here in Seattle. And from a top down, meaning somebody high up, has basically said, effectively, hey, we're only going to really release information to national media sources. We're not going to focus on local because your local isn't going to do us any help. So screw you guys. We're just going to come in. We're going to do our arrests, and that's what we're going to do. So I think there's a chance that there's a ton more arrests happening that we are not hearing about. And I believe it's on purpose. And to me, it's like mum's the word. We're going to come in. We're going to get our jobs done. And that's what's going on. You got Trump and you got Homan who are wanting this to be broadcast to the world, which I get. And yet I think there's folks that are boots on the ground doing their thing. They're like, yeah, we need a little bit of cover of darkness here, right? We don't need this broadcast out because we've seen what happens in Colorado. You've literally got George Soros radio station George Soros, I think, is it owned now? I know Soros bought a couple of hundred radio stations. They are broadcasting when ICE is doing a raid. They're broadcasting that information. They are directly impeding federal investigation. That to me should be a big no-no and automatically lose your FCC license, just like CBS should lose their license for cutting and pasting a horrific job on Kamala Harris. If you haven't seen that story, I know you have. If you see the before, you see what the unedited portion, she's just got this terrible answer, just this circular answer that goes nowhere. I don't know what she's talking about. And then what they cut and pasted in, for the sake of clarity, a totally different answer from within the same interview, granted, but a totally different answer. It made her sound like she could come up with a reasonable answer, which we all know she can't. So, you've got that going on, and Trump has basically said, hey, CBS should lose their license for election interference. This is federal interference here, interfering with immigration law. Yeah, have your funds pulled, put the spotlight on you, have your knuckleheads come testify before Congress. Let's see how it goes. And to impede consultation and communication between federal, state, and local law enforcement officials that is necessary for federal officials to carry out federal immigration law and keep Americans safe. How you can see this as anything other than the law doing what it should be doing, to me, is a shocker. It's like, well, they're not running around pulling kids out of school. They're not separating mom and dad from kids. They're not going after children at all. And yet that's all you're hearing in the mainstream media is no actual instances of this happening. None of this happening. None. But you are having child rapists taken out of Seattle. Let's look at that one real quick. So I know I said this was going to be about Chicago, but yeah, here it is. ICE Seattle arrests 4 illegal aliens with criminal convictions, charges for sexual assault. And I've covered this before. We got Pedro. Charged with theft, lewd acts with a child under 14, and sexual battery. Just a real sweetheart. We got Ruby, who is convicted of DUI with reckless driving and charged with rape of a child. Diddling a child. If you're okay with that, well, then interfere with ICE. Go for it. Be a sanctuary city, right? I mean, if that is your intent, is to protect child rapists, then you're doing the right thing. We've got Manuel de Jesus Zavala Martinez. He's got several criminal convictions, including assault with sexual motivation, another sweetheart, and assault with a deadly weapon. All right. Okay. So another rapist. Then we've got Jaspal Singh, charged with assault with sexual motivation. That's who ICE is getting a hold of here in Seattle. So make this make sense that you're going down this road of interfering with ICE. And we've got the Trump administration naming all these folks in Chicago. They're just doing work, right? Here's our next story. Brandon Johnson to testify before Congress on Chicago's sanctuary city status. This should be something else, because this guy is not very smart. This guy is, he cannot think on his feet. He just says a bunch of stuff that he has in his head that he kind of regurgitates back that really doesn't make sense. I think he's going to have his ass handed to him on a silver platter. Here you go. Let's go, Brandon Johnson. Your information provided here today to Congress didn't make a lot of sense. Mike Johnson, same way. Mike Johnson, I think a little bit quicker on his feet and arguably has a little bit more logic, but let's go Brandon Johnson. He is not an intelligent man. He should not be your mayor, Chicago. But you guys voted him in because you thought, hey, there's a strapping-looking young man who seems to be, he's got progressive notions. This should be great. Because the other 100 politicians who were the exact same thing, progressive, they all did such a great job, didn't they? No. You're going to see Brandon Johnson. That should be entertaining. Get out the popcorn. Let's take a look at this. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson testified before Congress on city's sanctuary status. He will be pressed for information on the policies. We thank committee members for the upcoming conversation on this important issue and for the opportunity for Mayor Brandon Johnson to represent Chicago alongside mayors from Boston, Denver, and New York. Okay, Eric Adams is going to be there as well. All right. Last week, Comer... let's go back up. Johnson, along with mayors from 3 other large U.S. cities, has confirmed he will attend a committee hearing chaired by Representative James Comer, a GOP congressman from Kentucky, who oversees the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Oh, they are being set up, aren't they? I mean, something's going to happen. Hey, sanctuary cities. Word to the wise, you might want to rethink that whole sanctuary city policy. But no, what are they going to do? They're going to say Orange Man bad, that they are, scooping up the children from school. They're taking hard-working, law-abiding citizens off of their jobs and illegally deporting them, which isn't happening because you'd have that news story be front and center 24/7 by mainstream media, wouldn't it? Instead, what you've got is you got Seattle ICE taking out 4 child rapists and virtually mum's the word on that. Just, you're not hearing about that. I've hit up so many people. Hey, did you hear that ICE took out 4 rapists from Seattle? And people are like, no, I didn't. And most of these are conservative people. I'm like, yep, that is the story. That is the story. There's no story. This isn't being covered on a large scale basis because it doesn't fit the narrative, which is ICE is, they're separating the children from their families. Couldn't be further from the truth. They are literally separating bad people from within our society who like to have sex with children. I mean, we just read the laundry list, right? Or with people who aren't their significant others or spouses, otherwise known as sexual assault and rape. Policies in Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York prioritize criminal illegal aliens over the American people. This is unacceptable, and their leaders must be held accountable. We will press these mayors for answers and examine measures to enforce compliance with federal immigration law. They're just going to put their nuts in a vice in the form of federal funding and go, squeeze that real hard, see what goes on. These folks are going to cave like there's no tomorrow. There's no way. Let's Go Brandon Johnson is probably one of the worst negotiators I have ever seen. He just doesn't even really negotiate. And these other mayors, Mike Johnson talks a big game. He's got nothing. Mayor from Boston, absolutely hopeless. I mean, just, liberal through and through. But when you put a little bit of flame to these folks, Chicago's been in the spotlight in recent weeks because the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has conducted operations in the city and suburbs. In December, Border Czar Tom Homan said Chicago would be ground zero for mass deportations. And it's happening, folks. It is happening on a big scale, right? How big a scale? We don't really know because I don't think we're not getting the news. We haven't had the news yet. You'll have, a handful of these press conferences, but as we go, I think there are so many leaks. I think there are so many Democrat cities, and that's where they're basically going after, right? Because the Republican cities, the Republican states, they don't have this issue. They're not sanctuary cities, not sanctuary states for the most part. You've got sanctuary cities within red states, but it's not as common as like just the West Coast state, sanctuary state. Attorney General Pam Bondi vows Trump's Department of Justice will return to its core function of prosecuting violent crime. The weaponization ends. See, end of the weaponization of government, getting back to prosecuting violent crime and give our great men and women the tools that they need in law enforcement. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? It's basically saying, hey, you, Mr. and Mrs. Police Officer, Ms. Police Officer, go out there and do your job. Hey, ICE, go out and do your job. Hey, whatever federal authority working on immigration, go out and do your job. Where that was not the case under the Biden administration, right? I mean, it's just a complete miscarriage of justice. We will do everything in our power to help find them and eradicate them in our country. The newly minted Attorney General said of violent gangs, drug dealers, and cartel members. Okay, they're not saying little Johnny, who plays power forward on his local soccer team. They're not saying they're going to go after little Johnny, right? They're not going after children. They're not going after law-abiding citizens. They're going after criminals. But you won't hear that anywhere because it doesn't fit the narrative of ICE is bad, Orange Man bad. Anybody who works under Orange Man's administration, bad, 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 right? Bondi charged that the Biden administration's Department of Justice focused too many resources on going after Trump 78 at the expense of tackling crime. Well, we know that to be true. We know that to be true. I mean, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. How'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for you, Democrats? Yeah. Yeah. Only 4 more years. Democrats, you got 4 more years of this beautiful stuff going on. They have targeted Donald Trump from day one. We've known this. We've always known this. And that is going to stop, Bondi says. I mean, day after day after day, we are watching this just kind of unfold, aren't we? It's pretty wild to see. We've gone from just wide open southern border to, I think, like 90% of the illegals coming across basically being stopped in their tracks. It's just not happening. I mean, not going to say the border is closed, but it's a lot more closed than when Biden and Harris were in office. What a debacle that was. What a debacle. Horrific. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.